did you leave me? Samuel asked, the hurt in his voice impossible to hide. Why didn't you stop this? The man's eyes softened for a brief moment, almost as if he regretted what he had become. I didn't leave you, Samuel, he said quietly. I was trying to protect you. But you see, the curse, it doesn't let go. Not once it has you. Samuel's stomach twisted. He had always wondered where his father had gone after disappearing years ago, but he never imagined it was like this. The curse had claimed him, and now it was reaching for Samuel. You have to help me, Samuel pleaded. I can't stop this alone. I didn't mean to bring all this chaos. The man, his father, stepped closer, his face unreadable. It's too late for that now, he said softly. The curse is already in motion. You can't undo what you've done, but you still have one choice. Samuel's eyes widened. What choice? What can I do? The figure leaned down, his glowing eyes never leaving Samuel's face. You can join us. You can embrace the darkness and take your place. The curse is strongest when it has blood. If you choose to accept it, you will never be alone again. Samuel's heart raced as fear and anger mixed inside him. The curse had already taken so much from him. He wasn't about to give in to it now. No, Samuel said firmly, his voice shaking with determination. I won't join you. I will fight. His father's face twisted into a grin, one that seemed both sad and dangerous. You think you can fight it? He laughed, his voice echoing through the shop. You have already lost. The darkness will consume you, just like it consumed me. Just like it consumed Obinna. Samuel turned towards Obinna, who stood silently, his face conflicted. The glowing eyes faded from Obinna's face, and for a moment, he looked like the boy Samuel had met earlier, afraid and lost. I didn't want this either, Obinna said softly, his voice laced with guilt. I didn't ask for this power. It just took over. But you're right, Samuel. You don't have to become like us. There is still a way to stop it. Obinna's eyes flickered with the faintest spark of hope. There is one thing the curse is afraid of. A pure, untainted soul. Something that can cut through the darkness and break its hold. You are that soul, Samuel. If you can find a way to reach that part of yourself, if you can hold on to it, you can destroy the curse once and for all. Samuel's thoughts raced. A pure, untainted soul. Was that still inside him? Had the curse already taken it from him? Could he still fight it? I don't know if I can, Samuel said, his voice trembling with fear and doubt. But I have to try. His father's face darkened and he raised a hand as if to strike. You will regret this, he said, his voice filled with rage. You can never escape us. But before he could move, the ground beneath Samuel's feet shook violently again. A deafening roar echoed through the shop as the cursed figures, heads, shadows, and twisted shapes began to surge towards him, closing in from all sides. Samuel's heart pounded in his chest, but he wasn't afraid anymore. He wasn't going to let the curse claim him, not without a fight. And that was when he felt it. A spark, a flicker of light deep within him. He reached out with his mind, his heart, and his soul, searching for that spark, the one thing the curse couldn't take. And then, just as the darkness closed in, he found it. Samuel's heart raced as the light inside him grew brighter, a warmth that spread from the center of his chest to every corner of his being. It was like a fire had been lit within him, banishing the cold, oppressive shadows that had gripped the shop. For the first time since the curse began, he felt something that wasn't fear. He felt strength. The shadows around him faltered, retreating from the light. Samuel's eyes flickered between the dark figures that had surrounded him and his father, whose face twisted into an expression of pure rage. "No!" his father growled, stepping forward. "You cannot defeat us, Samuel. You are still weak, just like the rest of them." But Samuel wasn't listening. He could feel the power within him growing, fueling his resolve. The spark inside him wasn't just light. It was a memory, a feeling he had long buried deep within his soul. It was his mother's voice, soft but strong, reminding him of the love and goodness she had instilled in him before she was taken away. It was the smile of his younger sister, the laughter they once shared, the peaceful moments of his childhood before everything had been torn apart. With every memory, the light inside him grew brighter and stronger. "I won't let you win," Samuel said, his voice steady now, filled with purpose. "You don't own me." Obinna, who had been watching in silent horror, now stepped forward, his expression full of uncertainty. He had been swallowed by the curse for so long that he had forgotten what it was like to feel pure, to feel free. "I am sorry, Samuel," Obinna whispered. "I didn't know how to stop it. I never wanted this." Samuel turned to face him, his heart heavy with compassion for the boy who had once been a friend. "It's not your fault," he said quietly. "We all have choices to make. You can still break free from this. It's not too late." Obinna's eyes flickered with hope, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he smiled, truly smiled. But their brief moment of peace was shattered when the shadows surged forward again, the cursed figure screaming in fury. Samuel's father stepped in front of him, his form becoming even darker, more twisted. "You cannot save him," he said, his voice now a low growl. "He belongs to the darkness." Samuel clenched his fists, feeling the power inside him burn brighter. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't fight the curse with force. That much had become clear. But he could fight it with what it feared most: light, love, and purity. Without another word, he closed his eyes and focused all his energy on that flicker of light inside him. He remembered his mother's gentle touch, the way she had always protected him with her love, and the warmth of her presence that had never truly left him, even after she had passed. With a cry, Samuel released all of that energy, letting it explode outward in a wave of light. It shot out of his chest, pushing back the cursed figures, sending them screeching into the shadows. His father stepped back, his face contorted in agony as the light burned through him, dissolving the dark energy that had taken hold of him for so long. For a moment, it seemed as though the darkness was completely gone. Samuel's father fell to his knees, his glowing eyes fading, returning to the man Samuel had once known. But even as the light poured through him, Samuel could feel something still lurking in the shadows, something that wasn't done yet. And then, with a deafening roar, the darkness returned stronger than ever before. It surged forward, engulfing the entire room in a wave of pure blackness. Samuel gasped, but he didn't let go of the light within him. He couldn't, not now. "Samuel," his father's voice broke through the chaos, weak but still filled with a hint of the man he once was. You must stop it." Samuel's father, now barely conscious, raised one trembling hand. "You are the only one who can," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Samuel turned to face him, but before he could speak, the darkness began to take shape. It swirled around them, forming into a massive figure, a shadowy being that towered over them, its eyes glowing red and its mouth twisted into a wicked grin. "You think you can stop me?" The voice of the curse echoed through the shop, a deep guttural growl that sent shivers down Samuel's spine. I am eternal. I will never be defeated. Samuel's heart raced, but he refused to back down. He could feel the light within him flickering, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He needed more. He needed to reach deeper, find something even stronger. He closed his eyes, focusing once again on the memories, on the love and light that still lived inside him. He thought of his mother, of his sister, and of the people he had lost along the way. He thought of Obinna, of the boy who had been lost to the cause, but was now willing to fight for his freedom. He felt their strength inside him, their light burning brighter than the cause ever could. With a roar, Samuel gathered every ounce of energy within him and directed it towards the dark figure, unleashing a wave of pure, unfiltered light that surged through the shop. The darkness screeched in agony as the light ripped through it, tearing it apart. The shadowy figure faltered, its form unraveling, its power diminishing. Samuel's father let out a final tortured cry, but the darkness that had claimed him began to crumble. Samuel watched as the curse collapsed, the shadows fading into nothingness. He fell to his knees, exhausted but victorious. The light within him, the love, the memories, they had been enough to defeat the curse. And as the room settled into silence, Samuel knew that his fight wasn't over. But for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had a chance. Samuel sat on the cold floor, his body drained from the battle, but his heart was filled with a sense of victory. The dark shadows had vanished, and his father, though barely alive, was no longer the twisted figure that had once stood before him. But as the silence enveloped the room, Samuel knew that something was still missing. The battle was won, but the war against the cause had only just begun. Obinna, who had been watching the entire confrontation, stepped forward, his face a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You did it, Samuel," he whispered. "You really did it. You freed us." Samuel barely had the strength to stand, but he managed to push himself up, leaning on the counter for support. "I didn't do it alone," he said, his voice weak. "We are all connected by the same darkness, but we can fight it together." His eyes shining with gratitude. "You are right. We have to stick together. We can't let it take anyone else." Just then, the shop door creaked open, and a soft, familiar voice called from outside. "Samuel! Samuel, are you in there?" It was his sister, Amara. Samuel hadn't seen her in years, not since the curse had taken hold of their family. She had left, moving far away, but now she was here. Samuel's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected her to come back. After everything that had happened, he thought she had cut ties with him, just like everyone else. But there she was, standing in the doorway, her eyes filled with concern and love. "I heard the noise," Amara said softly, pulling back to look at him. "I had to come. I didn't know what was happening, but I couldn't stay away." Samuel's throat tightened with emotion. "I didn't want you to see any of this, Amara. It's not safe. The curse." Amara placed a gentle hand on his arm, silencing him. "Samuel, I know. I have always known. I just didn't want to believe it." Samuel looked down at his hands, still trembling from the aftermath of the curse. "I have made so many mistakes. The shop, the curse, it all started because of me." Amara shook her head. "No, Samuel. You didn't ask for any of this. But you've been fighting, and that's more than anyone else has done." As the siblings stood there in the quiet, something began to shift in the room. The air felt lighter, like the oppressive weight that had once filled the space had been lifted. The darkness was gone, but there was still a lingering feeling of unease, a sense that something was missing, that not everything was as it seemed. Suddenly, Samuel's father stared. He lifted his head slowly, his eyes now dim and clear, no longer glowing with the cursed lights. He looked around the shop, confusion written across his face. "Samuel," he whispered, his voice raw. "What have I done?" Samuel stepped forward, his heart heavy with sorrow and understanding. "You were taken by the curse, Dad, but have stopped it. We are free." His father's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted this for you. I never wanted to hurt you. The curse, it has a way of claiming everything. I tried to keep you safe, but—" Samuel nodded, stepping closer. "I know, Dad. I understand. But it's over now. We will fix this together." As Samuel helped his father to his feet, he glanced at Obinna and Amara. There was a shared understanding between them now, an unspoken promise that they would never allow the curse to take anyone else. They had broken the chain, but the work was far from finished. Suddenly, the shop door swung open again, and another figure stepped inside. This time, it was the last person Samuel ever expected to see. "Samuel," the figure said in a voice that sent chills down his spine. "It's not over." It was the old man, the one who had first warned Samuel about the curse, the one who had told him about the buried human head, about the dark powers that could be awakened, the one who had always been watching from the shadows. He stepped into the light, his crooked smile stretching wider, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling energy. "You think you've defeated it?" the old man said. "But the curse is not just in this shop. It's in the land. It's in the bloodline. And as long as the head is buried here, the curse will always return." Samuel's stomach dropped as the old man's words settled in. "No," Samuel whispered. "We stopped it. It's gone." The old man laughed, a dry rasping sound that seemed to echo in the empty space. "You don't understand, boy. You can't stop what has already been set in motion. The darkness is in your blood, in your very soul, and it will never leave, not until it has consumed everything." Samuel's heart sank. Could it really be true? Could the curse never be truly broken? The old man's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold calculation. "But there is still hope. There is always a way. But it will require more than just light, more than just love. You will need to sacrifice what you hold most dear." Samuel's breath caught in his throat. Sacrifice? What did the old man mean? What would he have to give up? Before Samuel could ask, the old man turned and walked out of the shop, leaving only a trail of darkness in his wake. Samuel stood frozen in place, his mind racing. He had fought so hard to free himself, to free his family. But was it enough? Was the curse truly gone, or had it only just begun? And if there was a sacrifice to be made, what would it be? Samuel stood motionless, his mind swelling with confusion and dread. The old man's words echoed in his mind like a haunting melody. Sacrifice? What could he possibly have to give up? He had already given so much: his peace, his joy, and almost his family. He turned to his father, whose face was still pale but clearer than it had been in years. "Dad, what did he mean?" Samuel asked, his voice barely a whisper. His father shook his head slowly, as if trying to make sense of the words himself. "I don't know, but I've heard the stories. The curse, it's old, and it's not just in the ground. It's been passed down through the generations, like a shadow that never truly disappears." Samuel swallowed hard. He looked around the room at the people he loved, his sister, Obinna, and his father. And he realized that, despite everything, he couldn't let fear consume him. They were all still here, standing together, and as long as they had each other, they could face whatever came next. Amara stepped forward, her voice gentle but filled with determination. "Samuel, we've fought hard to break this curse. You've given everything you have. Don't let the old man's words control you. We've seen what you love and light can do. We've already defeated the darkness." Samuel nodded, feeling the strength of her words fill him with renewed hope. He turned to Obinna, whose eyes were filled with understanding. "Obinna, what do you think?" Obinna hesitated, then spoke, his voice steady. "I think the old man is right about one thing. The curse will try to come back. But if we keep fighting together, it will never win. We can face anything if we don't let the fear take over." Samuel smiled faintly, a sense of peace washing over him. He had no idea what the future would hold, but he knew what with his family by his side, he could overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. That night, they gathered around the table, talking quietly, sharing memories and making plans for the future. There was a bond between them now, a bond stronger than any curse, stronger than any darkness. But even as they spoke, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that the old man's words were still lingering in the air. It was as if the darkness wasn't finished with him yet. And yet, deep down, he knew something important. It wasn't about defeating the curse alone. It was about keeping the light alive in their hearts, no matter what came. The next morning, Samuel stood at the front of his shop, looking out over the streets. The sun was rising, casting a warm golden light over the city. And for the first time in a long time, he felt truly free. The curse might not be gone forever, but as long as they fought together, it would never have the power to take them down. And as he turned to face the future, he knew that his real strength didn't come from the light or the memories, but from the love he had for his family and friends. That was the one thing that the curse could never take away. Moral lessons. 1. The power of unity. Samuel couldn't break the curse alone. It was only through the love and support of his family and friends that he found the strength to fight and overcome the darkness. In life, we are stronger when we face challenges together. 2. The light of love. Love is a powerful force. It can drive away fear, darkness, and pain, no matter how hard life gets. Love for others can be the light that guides us through the toughest times. 3. Sacrifice for the greater good. Sometimes, we may be asked to make difficult choices. The greatest sacrifices often bring the most rewarding results, not just for ourselves, but for the people we love. 4. Fear can hold us back. The curse tried to control Samuel through fear, but when he chose to stand strong, to trust in the love of his family, and to face the future without letting fear win, he was able to break free from its grip. Fear is only powerful if we let it control us. 5. Never lose hope. Even when things seem impossible, when it feels like the darkness is closing in, there is always hope. The key is to keep fighting. Keep believing in yourself and the people who care about you. 6. Embrace the journey. Life isn't always easy, and sometimes the road ahead is unclear. But each step we take, each challenge we face, helps us grow and learn. The journey itself is a part of the healing and the growth. And so, Samuel learned that though the curse might return, the strength to face it came from within. The love, unity, and hope that could never be taken away. We have come to the end of the story. If you love this video, please kindly share with your loved ones. Leave us a comment on your opinion and subscribe for another interesting video like this. Until I see you all on the next one. Bye for now.